It's time for your daily LSU baseball update with Musso at the box. Now, Matt Musso.
And welcome into another edition of Musso at the box. We continue to charge forward towards LSU's opener in the Chapel Hill Regional. They will face Wofford at 11 a.m. on Friday. But today we step away from the Wofford Terriers and we preview the other two teams in the regional, the host and number 4 national seed North Carolina Tar Heels and the number 4 seed Carolina's first opponent in this regional, the Long Island University Sharks. So we will go pretty deep dive on both of these teams here over the next 3 minutes. Let you hear from some of the head coaches. Found a lot of interesting things when looking at both of these clubs and fired up to dive into it with all of you. So smash the like button if you have not already. Get subscribed up to the YouTube channel if you have not already. Subscribe up on your favorite podcast app if you have not already. Follow me on social media. And let's hop right into it. We're going to start with the host North Carolina Tar Heels. Obviously, we're going to spend a lot more time on the Heels. We will go into Long Island because you could end up seeing them. But the majority of this will focus on the top seed in this regional and the number 4 seed nationally. And I want to start with a look at this draw from North Carolina's perspective. That was one of the storylines we talked about so much heading into the postseason because LSU was hot and they're the defending champions, and you know that they are a talented team, talented bunch from top to bottom. And I said it, you said it, everyone said it. No one's going to want to see LSU pop up in their regional on Selection Monday. Well, North Carolina was the team that ultimately had that hand dealt to them, and their coach, Scott Forbes, when he met with the media on Selection Monday, gave his take on the defending national champions coming to town.
It's fitting, number one, for this team because not many people have talked a lot about our team, throughout the season, and we've got one of the best teams in the country. But again, you got to beat great teams, and LSU's program is their program. I think it's awesome. LSU coming here will bring out the best in everybody that's here. But they're not the only team here, and I have to remind our guys that we've got to play really good against Long Island to play Wofford or LSU. So I'm excited about it, but I'm more excited for our guys, and this is the time of year that, as a coach, if you've done your job, you don't have to do nearly as much because the guys, it's their time.
So 2 things there from Scott Forbes. Number one, he answered that question as well as you can. Complimentary of LSU, we're excited about it, all that. That's the answer you're supposed to give. Deep down, there's no way you are actually excited about that, though, because LSU is the defending champions. It is one of the premier programs in college baseball. They are really hot. They are coming in. You are the number 4 national seed. You would hope you get a little bit easier draw than that, but that's the hand you're dealt. But he handled that great. The other part about that, because I think anyone, especially from the outside, hearing me say that is like, oh, guy who covers LSU, pumping up the program, all that. The other part about what Scott Forbes said there, I could not agree more with him, where he talks about fitting for their team because no one's really talked about their team all year. And hello, they're the number 4 national seed in the country. They won the ACC. I have sat here all the way since Selection Monday and listened to a lot of people around this. I don't want to say around this program because LSU wouldn't do that. I'm going to play a cut from Jay Johnson here momentarily that kind of illustrates that. But just around who fans and media alike discredit this North Carolina team. And for the life of me, I don't understand why. They have not nearly gotten the respect that they deserve from many around Baton Rouge. This is a really good baseball team. And if you think anything else, like if you think LSU is going to waltz into Chapel Hill and just cruise through North Carolina, you have another thing coming. And you're setting yourself up for a potential massive disappointment. This is a team that won not just a Power 4 league, but head and shoulders the second best league in college baseball. Look at the ACC. The ACC had 11 of their 14 teams in double-figure conference wins. 8 of the 14 teams made it into the NCAA tournament field. 5 hosted, the same number as the SEC got. 8 of the 14 teams were in the top 50 in the RPI, and they went 22-8 in that league and won it. They deserve respect for that alone. Scott Forbes has kept this thing going after Mike Fox retired. He was the associate head coach under Mike Fox when North Carolina made trip after trip after trip after trip to Omaha. They have the cachet. They have a lot of really good players, some of them who played in the SEC last year. And they've done a great job at evaluating talent from maybe a smaller school and bringing them in and having it translate. They played a really tough schedule. You know, North Carolina, y'all, they missed Clemson. They missed Florida State. You catch a little bit of a break there. But they had to play NC State, who won 18 games in the league. They had to play Louisville, who won double-figure games, swept them. Louisville finished above 500, missed the NCAA tournament, got swept by North Carolina. They had to go on the road to Wake Forest, swept Wake Forest. We all think the Demon Deacons are pretty good. They had to go on the road to Virginia. They had to go on the road to Duke. Duke was a fringe host team, hosting bubble team. They took 2 out of 3 there. You're not going to win them all. They swept 5 series, by the way, in ACC play, tied their record. This is a really good baseball team. And they deserve your respect. And I'm going to do my very best to lay that out for you here shortly. Because what you won't hear me say is LSU is going to waltz through Chapel Hill, take down North Carolina with ease, and just move on. I said it on Monday when we did our reaction that I would not call this a favorable draw for LSU. I said it was just right. If you want a favorable draw, look at the potential super. But to get there, you don't have it. Anytime you have to go on the road to a top 4, not even top 8, top 4 national seed, who, by the way, is 32-2 at home and has not lost back-to-back games at home all season, that ain't favorable. It just isn't. Jay Johnson was asked about North Carolina and gave his glowing review of their program.
I have great respect for their program. You know, much like LSU relative to, there was a stretch there with Omaha trips. You know, they were running around Omaha a lot. You know, Mike Fox was the head coach there, and Scott Forbes is the head coach now and was the associate head coach then. And you think about all the big league players that they've had, it's one of the best brands in the sport. So I think it's awesome.
And they got a few more future big leaguers on this team this season. LSU's last meeting with North Carolina was in Omaha. It was 2013. The Carolina Tar Heels eliminated LSU 4-2. I hate that World Series with a burning passion, so that's all I'm going to say about that. But that is the last time that these two teams met, and North Carolina got the better of LSU. When you look at common opponents here on the season for the Tar Heels and the Tigers, North Carolina, I just exited out of something that I didn't need to exit out of. That low-key stinks. North Carolina played South Carolina earlier this year. Obviously, the common opponent there with LSU. Tigers beat South Carolina twice in the SEC tournament. North Carolina fell in a midweek game, important distinction, fell in a midweek game to South Carolina 2-1. One more quick scroll through, and I believe that is the only common opponent this season for LSU and North Carolina. So you can kind of just, you know, throw the rest of that out the window. And yes, it is that's it for common opponents. What do you want to see from North Carolina? Well, not really what do you want to see. What are you going to see from North Carolina is a better way to put that. You're going to see one of the most complete teams in the country from top to bottom. They are very, very good offensively, hitting .311 as a team, 9 runs per game. They can run the ball out of the ballpark with 105 home runs. There are 5 players in this lineup in double figures in home runs, 5 players with over 50 RBI in this lineup. 6 of their everyday 9 hit over 300, and they have 80 plus steals on the year as well. Does South Carolina. I'll get you North Carolina, the exact number 82 steals on the year. They are a very multiple offense that can attack you in many, many different ways. They have veteran pieces like Vance Honeycutt, who we would get into, like Parks Harbor, who transferred in from Georgia, and they have two dynamite freshmen in Gavin Gallagher and Luke Stevenson that we will get into. It is a balanced, deep lineup that can make life miserable for starting pitching and bullpens alike. On the mound, you're going to see a top 15 pitching staff in the country when it comes to ERA. There's a great 1-2 punch at the top. We'll get into them a little bit more specifically momentarily, but a great 1-2 punch at the top of the rotation. They've had two different guys fill that game 3 role, both of them doing so successfully, and the bullpen has about 3 or 4 that they really, really, really count on. Dalton Pence, a closer, 30 appearances, 6 saves. Matthew Mateus, 31 appearances. Kyle Percival, a sub-2 ERA out of the bullpen in over 20 appearances. This is a really, really good club. It might not be the most overpowering stuff you will ever see. They have less strikeouts than innings pitched, but one thing they do, they throw a lot of strikes. So if you're LSU and you're looking to see how you match up with this North Carolina pitching staff, I would tell you one thing. I think you can be very aggressive against this staff because they're in the zone an awful lot. And then in the field, they've had a few problems in a few games that have kind of drug their fielding percentage down, but it's still a respectable 973. They are a very complete team from top to bottom. So where would you like to start? Let's start offensively. And we're going to start with Vance Honeycutt, who is just Mr. Carolina Tar Heel. He is a veteran. He is going to be, if not a first-round pick, right outside in like those comp rounds in this summer's draft. He is an elite center fielder. Like, we're going to get into his offensive numbers here momentarily, but how about the defensive numbers from a guy like Vance Honeycutt? He was named ACC Defensive Player of the Year. This is the first time in conference history a player has won the award twice, and it's back-to-back years as well. He saves 12 runs, 12 defensive runs saved. That's the highest of any player in the conference and tops all outfielders in Division I baseball. So I wanted to get that out of the way before we go into the offensive numbers, which are mighty impressive too. So let's talk about Vance Honeycutt at the plate. You'll see him in a variety of different spots in the lineup. He could lead off. He could hit a little bit towards the middle as well. But overall for him, it is a .319 batting average, a team-high 22 home runs, 58 RBI, and a team-high 28 steals. This is his second 2020 season in his time in Chapel Hill. He did it as a freshman and now has done it again. 2 2020 seasons, 20 homers, 20-plus steals. He's remarkable. Now, the caveat is he's been dealing with some back spasms, and Scott Forbes missed the ACC tournament, and Scott Forbes gave an update on Vance Honeycutt on Monday.
Man, he felt great today. He felt good enough against Wake Forest on Friday night, but yesterday he felt a little bit better, and then today he told me, he's like, for the most part, I feel as good as I did before it spasmed up. So we'll just keep an eye on it. He has a certain mattress here, which also helps playing at home, and we'll get his treatment, but he looks great, so we'll just get him ready.
Vance Honeycutt's going to play in this. He's a junior. He's the leader of this team. It's his last go-round before he goes to Major League Baseball. If he can play, he's going to play, and he's going to play. And based off the history, he's going to play really, really well. Let's move on to Parks Harbor, shall we? That's a name that should sound incredibly familiar. Of course, transfers over from Georgia, had a great career in Athens, and has just fit right in Chapel Hill. Second on the team with 20 home runs. He is second on the team with 60 RBI and is hitting over 350. He's just been magnificent. Big right-handed bat with power to all fields. It is raw stuff, and he will also hear his name called in this summer's draft. And again, I don't really feel like I have to go too deep on Parks Harbor because we've talked about him plenty on the show in the past when LSU has matched up with Georgia. Casey Cook is somebody very, very interesting for North Carolina. Another guy that will hit middle of the order, but you've also seen him, kind of hit at the top of the order as well. He is the RBI leader on this team with 76. He is hitting 345 and is third on the team with 18 home runs. He carries not necessarily a hitting streak, but he has hits in 9 of his last 10 games coming into this regional. 6 of those 9 multi-hit efforts. He has been awesome as well for North Carolina. Perfect in the stolen base category at 7 for 7. Anthony D'Onofrio, just an incredible Italian name. And also a pretty darn good baseball player as well. Second leading guy on this team in steals, 18 of 20, hitting 328, and is on the doorstep of getting to 50 RBI, which would give this North Carolina team 6 players in that category. He's just been very good. He's also on fire. Carries a 9-game hitting streak into this regional. 7 of those 9 games, multi-hit efforts for Anthony D'Onofrio. And now we get into the standout freshman in this lineup for the Tar Heels. And that's going to start with Gavin Gallagher, who we mentioned a few minutes ago can hit throughout this lineup. Lead off, he's hit down towards the bottom. He's hit in the middle. Wherever they've put him, he's hit. An incredible freshman season for him at 355, leading this Tar Heel team in batting average. The home run power has been slower to come, only 6, but he still managed to drive in 30 runs. That's a sensational freshman season, and he really hit the ground running early and has never really kind of gone into much of a lull. He's just been really good and really consistent for North Carolina all season long. And you're going to obviously have to deal with that guy. Then we'll finish up the offensive conversation with Luke Stevenson, another true freshman who's hitting a tick below 300, 13 homers as a true freshman, and over 50 RBI. He also perfect in the stolen base category, but it's only 2 for 2. But those 2 freshmen are going to be huge. How can LSU, this is kind of something to look at, provided LSU makes it to the winner's bracket game and faces off against North Carolina at some point this weekend, can LSU force those freshmen to look like freshmen? Not just Gallagher and Stevenson, but we'll get to some on the pitching side as well. But can LSU, who has freshmen of their own, and Stephen Milam, Ashton Larson, who are going to look to play big roles this weekend, but can LSU, with their veterans that they do have, like Holman, like Jump, like Tommy White, like Jared Jones, and especially the guys like White and Jones and Milazzo and Travinsky, who were huge parts of the run to Omaha, and even on the pitching side, Gavin Guidry, Griffin Herring, Nate Ackenhausen, guys like that. Can they force those freshmen to look like freshmen? That's going to be something massive to see. How do those guys, who the stage hadn't been too big for them yet, but if and when they match up with the defending national champions in postseason play, do the lights get a little bit bright? That's North Carolina's offense. They are very, very good. Let's talk about the pitching staff. We mentioned the 1-2 punch. This is something interesting to keep an eye on as well, because North Carolina, as the 1 seed, as the host, they get the 4. What can they do? Can they pitch off? Will they alter their rotation? Scott Forbes was asked about that on Monday, and here was his answer.
I don't know. We need to look at all 3 teams. I do feel like we have flexibility with our 3 starters of switching it if we want to. I don't think it's a big deal. We'll look at it more as what we feel like is the best matchup for game 1 and throw that guy. And then, or if they are equal, who's the better matchup against Wofford or LSU?
If I had to hazard a guess, I would say that North Carolina is not going to throw Jason DeCaro against Long Island. Could they throw Shea Sprague? Sure. But they could also throw Aiden Hall, who's been really good for them in a starting role down the back half of conference play and now into the postseason. And he's got really good stuff. It's a big fastball that can get up to 95 miles an hour. He's got a slider that plays off of it. Like, you heard Scott Forbes say right there, they have flexibility with their 3 guys that they feel good. You throw that guy against Long Island, you're going to have a really good chance to win that ball game. And then you would potentially have Jason DeCaro and Chase Sprague set up for you. If I were Scott Forbes, that's 100% what I would do. Either way, even if they keep it the same, LSU, provided you beat Wofford, is going to face either Jason DeCaro or Chase Sprague. So let's talk about those two guys. We'll start with the ace of the staff, Jason DeCaro, who is a true freshman and has been phenomenal for North Carolina. Big, tall, loose, really projectable frame on him, 6'5", 220 already as a freshman, and there's still kind of room to fill out even a little bit more. He's 5-1 on the year with an ERA of 3.8, 73 in the third innings pitched, 34 walks, 64 strikeouts, opponent hitting 232. We talked about being able to be aggressive. You can do that against Jason DeCaro. He's going to be in the strike zone more often than not. 64 hits and 73 in the third innings. That's pretty good. The controls and commands gotten away from him a little bit with those 34 walks. But if you're looking from a pure stuff standpoint, his best pitch is a slider, and it's really good. He's got a curveball to kind of go along with that. That could develop into a weapon. It looks like they're pretty high on that just from, looking around and reading and whatnot. But that's where he kind of tends to lose command. Slider's the best pitch. The fastball is going to be 91 and top out at 94. He might scratch a 95 across there, but he hasn't really tapped into the overpowering stuff. The more he goes along in his career, he definitely could. So if you see Jason DeCaro, can you make him look like a freshman with the veterans in your lineup that we talked about earlier? Tommy White, Jared Jones, Hayden Travinski, Josh Pearson, Alex Milazzo. Like, can you exploit the inexperience from him in what would be a massive game? If you do not see Jason DeCaro, it stands to reason you will see Chase Sprague, and he is absolutely a guy that you can be aggressive against. He is 100% always in the strike zone. 65 innings pitched, just 14 walks. Now, the counterpoint to that is just 55 strikeouts. Not overpowering. Fastball, 88 to 91. Might push across a 92 every now and then, probably 88 to 91 more than likely, with 2 breaking balls, a slider, and a curve. He is 3-1 on the year with an ERA just a tick over 4. Has pitched in some big spots. 261 is the batting average against. You look at the innings pitched, we said 65, 64 hits, 14 walks. He's in the zone. You can be plenty aggressive against him. And then we talked about Aiden Ball, but I don't think LSU is going to see him. I really do believe North Carolina would pitch him against Long Island. So I think you're seeing one of Jason DeCaro or Chase Sprague if you're LSU and you get into that winner's bracket game. Let's take a look at the bullpen a little bit here for North Carolina, and then we will move on to we'll get some final thoughts, and we will move on to Long Island. Leading appearance guy out of the bullpen is a big righty, Matthew Mateus. 31 appearances, 49 in the third innings in that, 51 strikeouts to only 15 walks. It's a really, really good ratio. It's a low 90s fastball. The pitch that he really looks to excel with is the slider. It's got a lot of depth to it. It kind of looks like he throws 2 versions, one that has a lot of depth, but one that's a little bit more tighter that he can get over for a strike, and he goes to it plenty in 2 strike counts. They've brought him in plenty massive situations this year, as you can see, as evidenced by the 31 appearances. And he also has appeared in multiple instances in a game, back end, middle relief, things of that nature. Dalton Pence is the closer, left-hander. It's a good fastball from the left side, low 90s, backs it up with a slider. 30 appearances for him, 6 saves, which leads the team in a ERA of 2.14. He's been very good. He's one of the more overpowering pitchers on the staff. 55 strikeouts in 42 innings. The opponent is hitting just 179 off of Dalton Pence. And as you see in baseball these days with a closer, it's not just the last 3 outs. When they are in the biggest leverage spot, North Carolina has used Dalton Pence. So, if you see him in the 6th or 7th inning, don't be surprised. They're going to go to him when the game is on the line. That's more of what you're seeing with a closer from these days in baseball anyway, and you're seeing save totals actually kind of go down. So like we said, low 90s fastball, plenty good enough from the left side, and a really, really nice slider from Dalton Pence as well. There's another lefty to keep an eye on in this bullpen, and that's Kyle Percival. 21 innings for Percival. A minuscule 1.61 ERA in 22 and a third innings. Now, he's more of the matchup type guy, but he comes in with plenty good enough stuff as well. As you can see, based off of those numbers, another low 90s fastball, a little bit lower 90s maybe than Pence, but can still run it up there as well. And that traditional just lefty slider that comes across his body and just is a really tough at bat. So that's why you see him more as that, kind of left-handed specialist. They're not going to really extend him here. Come get, there's two lefties coming up. Come get him out. See if you can make it through the whole inning, things of that nature. But he's been really, really good. Like we said, constantly in the zone, only 9 walks, not overpowering, 20 strikeouts in the 22 and a third. But somebody you must keep an eye on. The other guy that I would really highlight is Matt Poston, 25 appearances. That is third on this team out of the bullpen. Big old right-handed arm, 96 the fastball can get up to. Really got powerful stuff, 44 strikeouts in 32 innings. The problem is he's gotten hit, 31 hits in those 32 innings, and when he's gotten hit, the runs have come around to score, and that's why the ERA is a little elevated. It's at 5. The numbers there are a little bit more, they're a little bit deceiving if you look at a guy like Matt Poston, because you can go through his appearance by appearance breakdown, and you see a few black eyes where, okay, there was 2 runs given up in a third of an inning. That's going to just skyrocket your ERA. He got off, I think, here I'll pull this up just to double check and make sure I have the correct information for you here. Through 5 starts this year, through 4 starts this year, his ERA on the season was 9. So, he got off to a slow start. Since May 7th, he has lowered his ERA by more than a run, by about a run and a half. So he's pitching really well right now, and the stuff is plenty good enough. Again, one of the more overpowering arms on the North Carolina staff is Matt Poston. They go to him a lot. Do not be fooled by the 5.06 earned run average. Overall thoughts on North Carolina, they're really good. I think they're really good. I think they're going to be a very tough out, actually, for LSU. I like the offense an awful lot from them. I know I mentioned deep in balance. I think the perfect illustration of that is looking at them and seeing one guy lead them in batting average, another guy lead them in homers, and a completely separate guy lead them in RBI. That lends itself to production throughout this lineup, as if 6 guys hitting over 300 doesn't do that enough. So that's going to be a really tough challenge for, you would hope, Luke Holman, after LSU would beat Wofford and get to that 1-0 game in the regional. You're going to have to obviously not issue walks. You're going to have to not give them anything else, because they do really well putting pressure on the offense with those stolen bases. Now, I will say from a matchup standpoint, LSU's done really well at throwing opposing base runners out. Alex Milazzo and Brady Neal, those are the 2 catchers you're probably going to see. I don't think Hayden Travinsky's really going to get time behind the plate. Alex Milazzo has thrown out 64% of base runners this year. Brady Neal's thrown out 75%. So that's something that LSU has actually been pretty good at this year. But I have a lot of respect for this North Carolina team. I admire what they did in the ACC, which was again a tough league this season, and they are talented. They are talented, and they got a lot of young talent. You're going to be hearing a lot from the boys in Chapel Hill for years to come here in college baseball. Let's talk about Long Island, if we could. They are coached by Dan Perillo. He has been the coach since the 2016-2017 season. This is the 3rd time he has led them to regional play. They won the NEC Tournament Championship in each of those years. Their most recent appearance was 2022. So you do have veteran guys on this team with postseason experience. That is something to absolutely keep an eye on. That matters. We just kind of talked about that with LSU and some of the guys that they have, clearly, who are part of a national title run. LIU, same thing. You're in the postseason for the second time in 3 years, you're going to have a lot of veterans on the club who remember that and have that experience. This is a program that set the program record with 27 conference wins this season. And they, speaking to the veteran aspect of them, they don't quit. They have a lot of spunk, a lot of fight. Just look at the NEC tournament. In the NEC tournament, they came from behind late in the game. Not just come from behind, came from behind late in the game to win the final 3 games, facing elimination in most of them. So in the semifinals, they're facing elimination. They're down in the 8th inning. They score 7 runs in the 8th inning to come back and win that and advance to the finals. Double elimination, they're needing to beat Sacred Heart twice. How about a 5-run 7th inning in game number 1 to come back? Stave off elimination, force another game. And then in the finals, 7-run 9th inning to come back and win. So, y'all, they've been really, really good. When you look at them from an offensive perspective, nothing's really going to jump totally off the page at you numbers-wise. 272 as a club. They're not powerful, only 68 home runs, but they do have a few guys that you must, kind of keep an eye on. Seth Surratt is one of those guys. He's an outfielder. He was also the NEC tournament MVP. He's hitting .332, which leads this team, on the season. Pardon me. And then you also have Jake Mastillo, who that's the wrong tab. Jake Mastillo, who has set the program record this year for both home runs with 16 and RBI with 67. So he obviously leads the team in homers and leads the team in RBI. And then one more guy to highlight offensively is, darn it, man, this screen is sensitive, is JC Navarro. Navarro, second on the team in homers with 15, second on the team in RBI with 44. And then, you're looking at 300 hitters in the everyday lineup. Their ace on the mound is Garrett Yawn. It would make sense that they're going to throw him against North Carolina. They're not trying to get down here in this series, and he's been very good. 6-3 on the year for them, an ERA just a tick over 4, 104 strikeouts in 90 innings. Like he's a pretty good arm for them, but LSU shouldn't have to worry about that. Dominic Pito has been their number 2 and has been decidedly less successful. An ERA of 6.5, an opponent's batting average against a tick under 300, and then Jared Hughes, their number 3 starter, has an OBA over 300 and an ERA of 7.5. So, look, after they get past Garrett Yawn, they don't have much there. What is interesting is they do look like they've had some guys really succeed in the bullpen. P.J. Moritz, 31 appearances to lead the team and an ERA of 3.3. So he's been very, very good there. Jake Van Doren is their closer, 9 saves, 25 appearances. The ERA is elevated, but he's gotten the job done 9 times at the end of the ball game. So they definitely have no fear of going to him, nor should they. Nor should they there. Evan Panwani is another guy with over 20 appearances for LIU. So overall, they have an ERA over 6. Like it's a team that it's hard to really find their strength. They're so offensively. They're not great on the mound outside of their ace. And a few arms that we just mentioned out of the bullpen. It's just not a very deep team, but they do have postseason experience, and that is something to really keep an eye on. From a fielding perspective, they've struggled fielding below 970 at 968. One more note on the offense, kind of the same thing we talked about with North Carolina and what we'll talk about with Wofford when we go through that. LIU, the Sharks, they like to steal. 71 steals on the year, but I'll point you back to what we said about LSU's catchers. They've been pretty good at throwing it out there. So, look, I think everybody's expecting chalk to hold in this thing, at least through the first round, and have LSU go over Wofford and North Carolina go over LIU. But you never know. You got to look at all the teams in here, just in case. I mean, you could see any of them at any time, and you will see Wofford to open it, and we will have a full preview of them coming up momentarily before that game, or I should say in a show later before that game obviously gets underway. That's going to do it for today. That's your look at North Carolina. That's your look at LIU. Y'all smash the like button. Get subscribed up on the podcast apps. Get subscribed up on the YouTube channel. Share. And be here next time for more on Musso at the Box.